It's time for the Las Vegas Sports Line, brought to you by the Sunset Station with sports director Chuck Esposito. Presented by WagerTalk.com.
Here we go. It's the Monday edition of the Las Vegas Sports Line. I'm Dave Cokin. Marco DAngelo from WagerTalk is here. It's our Monday edition. That means Sunset Station, Station Casinos. Chuck Esposito with us. And Chuck's on the phone with us right now. We'll get to him in just a second. A very quick update on the Canada Day game played north of the border in Toronto, and the Blue Jays celebrated the holiday by dismantling the Royals 11-4. The rest of the baseball schedule tonight. We'll look at those games later in our MJ Christensen 4 at 4, plus our WagerTalk Marquee matchup for Monday. But the weekend, even though it's baseball season, dominated by the NBA free agency. Chuck, what a wild weekend it was.
It is, Dave. It's crazy, but I know, as you mentioned, baseball close to the halfway mark in the All-Star game, and you got Wimbledon and Women's World Cup in the semifinals. But the last 24-plus hours in both the NBA and NHL has been crazy. I mean, from our side of the counter, moving the future book teams, up and down, and information era. The guests are on top of it as well as we are, but it has been a crazy 24 hours. You think about it, 10-plus deals in the NBA of $100 million or more, $3 billion, I think they said they've shelled out so far. Just some crazy numbers and just a lot of movement and a lot of adjustment going on our side, guys.
Well, we're going to go through some of the big names, although we'll keep in mind the biggest name, Kawhi Leonard, still out there, and speculation now, including the possibility that he will end up with the Lakers. If that happens, I'm assuming the Lakers then become odds-on in the future book to win the championship, Chuck.
Well, I mean, they are now. I think it's more of, just kind of the public perception and the big question marks that are out there. I mean, I know with Davis and LeBron and, being able to retain Kuzma, they look like the favorite. But I'm not 100% sure they're the best team in the West right now. I think the Warriors getting DAngelo Russell, I think, really helped them a lot. I think Clay will be back at some point. They still got Curry and Draymond. I think what Utah's done so far with Conley has really helped them. I think you look at Portland and Denver. The Clippers still, if they were able to land Leonard, become an instant contender out there. Houston still has some question marks with what they're trying to do. So, I mean, right now, it is Davis and LeBron, but I think they need other guys. They need to land that third guy, and if it's not Leonard, who is it going to be? Because a lot of dominoes have fallen so far. I think you look out east, and of course, New Jersey, not this year, but the following year will be awfully good. I think Philadelphia, even though they lost Jimmy Butler, but picking up Horford really helped them a lot. Milwaukee is able to retain most of the pieces. They lose just Brogdon. But I think on both sides right now, Leonard's the key. If Leonard stays in Toronto, I think you have a much more balanced East. If he goes out West, I think the West, depending on where he goes, could be crazy. If he goes to the Lakers, I don't know what you make them. I think they're 5-2 right now. I think you have to think about even money or less if they end up having Davis, Leonard, and LeBron.
Yeah, my guess, if they get Leonard minus 200. But let's look at the moves that took place and go over some of these as far as what they mean to the teams, what they mean in the future book. And we'll begin with the big noise in the East, which was the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant won't be playing for them this coming season, but that's still a big signing for the future. And meanwhile, Kyrie Irving and DeAndre Jordan are now Nets, joining what was already a team that showed some promise this past season.
Yeah, I think they're a good team. They were before that. I think the trade, of course, of picking up Kyrie and Jordan helped, but I don't think there's a huge adjustment on them without having Durant this year. I think it's a much bigger adjustment, of course, going into next season than it is this year. And you look at, Kyrie, and he had some problems in Cleveland, and we thought when he was in Boston it was going to change that. It didn't work out quite well. You have to hope that, once him and KD are together, that it changes a little bit. But right now, without KD there next season, I don't think it's a huge adjustment, guys.
I want to talk about Durant for a moment because he's 32, I believe. He is going to be coming off a very significant injury. This is about as bad an injury as you're going to have for an NBA player. Is he being overpaid as a max? I mean, whoever signed him was going to have to give him the max contract, but is that going to be good value considering the risk?
Well, I think when you break it down, knowing that he's going to miss the entire season next season, I mean, you look at what it breaks down then on the 3 years of what he's getting. That is a tremendous amount of money. You don't know for sure. I mean, you've seen other teams take chances with guys with some health concerns. It is Durant. I mean, you look at how dominant he's been in the finals, how dominant he is on both sides of the court. And, with the surrounding cast they have in New Jersey, they think it's well worth it. The Knicks did not. If you believe all the rumblings that were out there, that they were in on him, but had some red flags. And with some of the guys they signed in the past, if it was Stoudemire or Joakim Noah, guys with injury concerns, it didn't work out. They shied away. It's a big investment for Durant, but you look at Jersey, and not this year again, next year they are going to be a very good team if he's healthy and ready to roll.
Chuck, going to the Celtics, you mentioned Kyrie Irving and his problems at Cleveland, and then there's never really seemed to be chemistry in Boston with him and the rest of the team. Now they pick up Kemba Walker. I like this move for Boston. I really think right now, without Durant playing this year, I think the Celtics become the favorite in the East for me.
I know, Marco, I look at the Celtics, but losing Horford and losing Kyrie and being able to trade for Kemba Walker, I think they still need to do something else. I like the Sixers a little bit. I thought they would resign Harris, and they did. Looked like Butler was going to be gone, but I like the move of bringing Horford there. I think it's a big help. He was rumored to be going out west, and I still think you look at the Sixers, they're healthy. Joel is healthy, and Embiid is healthy, and Ben Simmons. I think they've got a really good team, too. And if Leonard does go back to Toronto, even with what Boston has done and some of the other teams have done, I still make Toronto and Milwaukee the two top teams for me in the East, providing Leonard is there when the season starts.
Let's talk about Jimmy Butler, and reports indicating that Butler, wherever he was going to end up, he wanted to be the centerpiece of the team. Let's get your views on that, and then your views on the deal itself, which is a sign and trade that between the 76ers, Mavericks, and Miami Heat, with Miami the landing place for Butler.
Well, Butler's a guy, and I think he makes everybody around him better. But similar to the problems that we discussed with Kyrie Irving, I think you see that too. In Chicago, he wanted out. He wanted to go to Minnesota to play for Thibodeau, and he went there, and that didn't work out. And in Philadelphia, I think look at the young nucleus he has there. Had he stayed in Philadelphia, I think they were a team that you could be in that short discussion of 3 or 4 teams out east. He moved to a Miami team that I don't think is as good as the team he left. He paid a lot of money to be the centerpiece there, and he will be. I think he left a better situation in Philadelphia, in my opinion.
Jimmy Butler definitely wants to be the centerpiece, and there was just too many stars, I felt, in Philadelphia. It just didn't work there. Looking at the Warriors, they signed Klay Thompson to the big contract, and then they pick up DAngelo Russell. Is that enough of for them to be a contender again with what the Lakers have? And again, we don't know where Kawhi ends up. If he ends up at the Clippers, I really think that's going to be interesting to see. LA is going to be the showcase. I mean, the top 2 teams are going to play in the same building.
Same building every other night, absolutely. Well, I think for me, when you look at the Warriors, if Klay Thompson is able to come back at some point before next season is over, and that's the big question mark. I think that'd be a great prop is will the Warriors make the playoffs or not? But, I mean, if you've got a healthy Green and you've got Curry and Russell in the mix right now, and then you do bring Klay Thompson back, I think, just getting into the postseason, if they're one of those teams, they're a really dangerous team. I think with a healthy Klay right now, I think they're as good as the Lakers, the 2 guys that they have. I just don't think the Lakers have done enough. I know it's the public's perception, and you've got AD and LeBron there, but I think they need more. After Kuzma, I mean, you really look at who they're going to fill the roster with. There's a lot of chips that are, that are going past the board right now. You need to land some more guys, and I think a lot's contingent on what happens with Leonard. Is playing in that same building, but on the Clippers, they are instantly a contender, and I think it does make it interesting. As you mentioned, Marco, I've said it before, too, you may have the 2 best teams in the league playing every other night in the same building.
Well, the 76ers making some interesting moves. Butler's going to be gone. They've added a couple of interesting pieces. Al Horford, who still seems to have some life left in those legs, had a good year with the Celtics when he was able to play. And a signing that I guess I'll call this a little bit curious. He's a good player, but I don't know that he was expected to get this kind of a contract. And that's Tobias Harris. What are we looking at with the 76ers?
Well, I think they had a feeling Butler was probably going to go, and I think for that team, with that young team, they needed to sign Harris again, and they knew that other teams were going to offer him that kind of money, so they made the investment in him. I like the move of Harris. Personally, I think Jimmy Butler left a better situation in Philadelphia, and you have too many stars there, but you're a very young, competitive team. I think that was only going to get better. I like the move of Horford there. I think it had some depth up front. I still think, for me, they're one of the teams of 3 or 4 teams in the discussion in the Eastern Conference right now. And if Leonard doesn't sign with Toronto and he goes out west, I think Boston becomes in that discussion of the top 3 in the East for me.
And talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, you got Chris Middleton stays, Brook Lopez there as well, and of course the Greek Freak. We know what he can do. And Milwaukee getting to the point that they did last year, as we always talk about in the NBA, you got to earn it. You got to take those stepping stones, and they took that big step last year. Couldn't quite get over the hurdle to get to the NBA Finals. But you got to agree with you. You say they're them in Philadelphia are the teams to beat. I got to agree with you that Milwaukee is definitely one of the top teams in the East.
Well, I think the thing for me, I think both Lopez's are there now, and they had to sign Middleton. I think there was going to be a tremendous amount of interest within their own conference or their own division. I think Chicago and other teams were really looking at Middleton. I think losing Brogdon does hurt a little bit. They had talked about retaining all their guys and going into that luxury tax, and they didn't go that route. I mean, they still invested a lot in bringing back Lopez as well. But I think you've got a year now to kind of prove to Antetokounmpo that you want him to stay there, and you have to hope that they can add another piece or so just to be that team. Again, if Leonard leaves, though, I mean, for me, the best team in the East right now, if Leonard stays, I don't think it's Toronto, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. But I think they've shown that they're going to spend money. Quite deep that luxury tax as was rumored. Letting Brogdon go.
Let's talk about the Knicks. Years ago, there was a movie starring Kurt Russell called Escape from New York. If they do a remake, Kristaps Porzingis will be in the headline role, the starring role. He escapes from New York, and he is headed to the Dallas Mavericks. We'll talk about the Knicks in a minute, but let's talk about Dallas getting, to me, a franchise player who they can build around for the next several years.
I like him a lot. I mean, he hasn't played since, February of 18?
Yep.
So, but there's a lot of investment in him. I think he's a really talented guy. I know there was some questions, and the New York media wasn't, crazy about him when they drafted him, but he got better there with each passing year. I like Porzingis a lot. I think he's a cornerstone player. I like what Dallas has done so far in the offseason. I think they're a much better team, at least on paper, than what the Knicks are today. And, all you heard was that New York was going to go out and get somebody big, that they were going to land a big fish. Of all the ping pong calls don't fall their way. They don't get Williamson, and then now they don't land one of the big free agents as well.
The Pacers pick up Brogdon, and nice pickup from them. And this is a team,
really nice pickup.
This is a team that they're a scrappy bunch. One of the few teams that can play some defense in the NBA, and they're going to be an improved team, healthy. I mean, before the injury last year, and the players escaping my mind that got hurt second half of the season, they weren't the same team.
The kid from Indiana.
Yeah.
Olajuwon.
There you go. This team, I think, is going to be a team that will make the playoffs, and they'll be a pesky out for somebody.
I was looking at it, and of course we would talk about the NBA team kind of maybe under the radar a little bit would be Indiana with that move of getting Brogdon. But I think when you look at the Western Conference, and I think we talked about it last week, guys, when the Jazz for Conley, and now they go out and they get Bogdanovich as well, and they pay him some big money. I think they really helped themselves. And I know when you look at the Western Conference, you look at how well that Portland, Denver played last year in the playoffs, and I think Utah was that kind of point guard away. There are some good teams out west. Houston is still in the